Welcome to the Co-Host Bros Podcast, where we break down everything short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, and building a profitable hospitality business. Whether you're a host, investor, or property manager, we share real strategies, real insights, and real experiences to help you scale smarter and grow faster. Let's dive in.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Co-Host Bros Podcast. My name is Matt Codd. I'm hanging out with Austin Spitzenberger, and today we have Brooke Pfautz with Vintory. Did I get it?
You did. Well done, man. You nailed it.
Nailed it. Nailed it. 10 out of 10. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man, super excited to have you. It was good to connect at Verma this year, man, and we're excited to have you on the show. And let's just start with anybody that may not know exactly your story and what you do. Give them a quick breakdown of kind of how you got into the space and what you're up to today.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me on here. It's been like everyone, it's kind of an interesting journey into the world of short-term vacation rentals. I was actually in mortgage banking. I thought that was going to be my career. Had one of the largest mortgage banking operations in the DC, Baltimore area. Started that almost right out of college. And then 2007, 2008 hit, the financial crisis. And I was in a group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. The guy that was in my group said, "Hey, Brooke, I'm reading the same headlines you're reading. The mortgage business is not getting any better. I've had this idea to start a vacation rental company." He's like, I don't have the time, or the bandwidth to do it, but I've got money. He's like, "Will you be my business partner and help me launch a vacation rental company?" And that was the start of it all. So that was October 1st, 2007. So I just celebrated my 18th anniversary in the industry. It's kind of crazy to believe. So I started, we started a company called Vantage Resort Realty in Ocean City, Maryland. So I live in Baltimore. Ocean City is about 3 hours away. So every Monday I get in my car, I drive down to Ocean City and just talk to anybody who was stupid enough to listen to me about my idea of building a different type of a management company. And long story longer, we ended up growing that company from 0 to 500 properties in 5 years, exited in 2013. And I've had, various other leadership roles within the space. But most recently, Vintory, I founded about 7 years ago, and another company called Comparent. But really our focus over the last 7 years has really been focused on helping professional vacation rental management companies grow inventory. So we don't do anything with guests. We don't do anything with OTAs. We focus exclusively on the supply side, if you will. And that's growing inventory. And you think about it, it's the number one lever you can pull that has the greatest impact to your top line revenues and your bottom line profits.
Awesome, man. So when you mentioned you had you were building something, you were convincing owners that you had a different PM company. I think that was the words you used. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Break that down a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah. So look, Ocean City is a 9-mile sandbar and there's 20,000 condos. And we got an office, 5,200 Suite B, and we had 0 properties. And when we ended up rogering up right next to a company called Coldwell Banker. Coldwell Banker had been around for 40 years, had 4,000 properties under management, and they were 5,200 Suite A. So it was, to me, it was kind of big FU to them saying, "Well, I'm not afraid of you guys. You know what I mean? I'm going to roger up right up next to you guys, and I'm going to steal all your inventory, and I'm going to end up, taking over market share." Now, we never got to the point where they were, but we did. We definitely were a little bit of a thorn in their side. And what I realized was we can't do it like everybody else. If we're doing it like everybody else, we're not going to grow. We're not going to add properties. So the first thing I did was I said, all right, how can we differentiate our company? What can we do differently? And I mean, this is embarrassing to even admit, but back then in Ocean City in 2007, you didn't get linens. When you would check in your property, literally you had to bring your own sheets and towels. Not only do you have to bring your own sheets and towels, you had to bring your own toilet paper. It was crazy. So I said, you know what? I had this epiphany. I went down there and they just built a brand new Hilton Suites, and the Hilton Suites was getting $3,600 a week for a 1-bedroom, suite, really. Meanwhile, at the same time, around that time, it was about $1,600 or $1,200 a week for a 1-bedroom condo. And I said, well, why is Hilton getting 2X? and I looked at what they were getting and I was like, well, Epiphany, they, guess what? They provide sheets and towels. They don't make you bring your own sheets and towels. They don't even make you bring your toilet paper. And then I noticed some other things. They had a gym in the building. They had a USA Today sitting on your doorstep every single morning. So I said, what if I could take some of these things that Hilton was doing and bring that into my short-term rental company? And that's what we did. So we partnered with Gold's Gym. We gave every single guest a free gym membership. I used to hire these college kids that literally delivered newspapers. They had a USA Today sitting on everyone's doorstep. We even did something called Sunny Days Guaranteed. We actually bought a small insurance policy on the weather, believe it or not. And if it rained 4 more days out of their week's vacation, we actually refunded them their vacation, what they paid for the vacation. And that was purchased through a small little insurance policy. So the whole point of that was you have to differentiate. If you do it like everybody else, how are you going to grow? And we did this originally really to get guests. But what we ended up finding out was the owners liked it. The owners were like, hey, man, these guys are actually doing something different. And I'm going to get a higher clientele. I'm going to get a better guest that comes in and checks into my property. And it worked. And that was one of the differentiators because you got to differentiate.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. All that stuff's really cool. I couldn't get past the point that you moved in next to your competitors. That's the thing I can't get past. So like, so if you went from 0 to 500, did you ever get to the point where it was like you would run into them in the hall and it was awkward and they like started noticing you? Or did you get big enough? Because you said they were at 4,000 units. Did you get big enough to where it put a damper on them a little bit, or was it
Oh, no,
awkward? What was that like?
So I actually ended up being their assistant GM, who is now their GM. He had actually ended up becoming pretty good friends. But he told me at one point that they thought we were literally tapping the walls and like listening to them, and things like that. But they said we came up many a time in their management leadership meetings because we were definitely a thorn in their side because we just kept on like picking off their inventory. But it got really awkward because we had to go over to their offices a lot of times to get the keys. This is before like remote locks were popular. So when you wanted to go check out a property and walk it and give kind of a rental estimate, you had to like literally just go next door and get the keys. But like, let me just give you an idea of what I was going against. Again, they didn't provide sheets and towels. When you could rent sheets and towels through a third party. They literally gave them to you in a black hefty trash bag. They left them on your doorstep. And when they would check in, like when I would go next door to get the keys to like, potentially take a property from them, there was a sign on the door that said this: per your lodging agreement, check-in is at 4:00. And it was underlined and then exclamation point. If it is not 4:00, do not enter! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. How's that for hospitality? So this is what I was going against, like those were the old guards. And, so it was low hanging fruit, so to speak, to kind of do those things.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. But yeah, man, that's pretty cool. One thing I wanted to chat about with you is like for like the vacation rental space, like I guess from going from 0 to 500 in such a short period of time, what was like the lever that you pulled? Like how were you able to scale, I guess, so quickly? Was it networking with realtors? Was it your marketing campaign? Was it a combination of certain things? Because that's relative. That's really impressive, and I think our audience would be curious to see, like, how did you do that? Like,
Yeah, well, it was a couple things. There's no one silver bullet, only lead bullets, as Mark Andreessen with A16Z says. But realistically, it was just a grind. You know what I mean? You had to continue constant pressure on the market. We were relentless. So, our competitors were lobbing out one tiny little postcard, every year for renewals. We were sending out postcards every single week, like weekly for 52 weeks. And when I said a lot, you know what I mean? So we were like foot on the gas, like grow, grow, grow. That was one way. And direct mail works. I know, people, especially the younger generation, when you tell them direct mail, they kind of roll their eyes. All right, boomer, what are you doing? But guess what? Direct mail works in this industry, but you have to be consistent with it. So we literally we were relentless. We were constantly sending out direct mail. We would do these handwritten letters that were really good. They were written with robots. They looked like they were handwritten letters, but they were like, it was actually like I was writing a letter to you. And that got a lot of attention. We did really nice postcards. What we ended up realizing though was, out of these 20,000 condos, there was really only like 6 or 7 buildings and communities that we wanted to be in, because these properties were generating significantly more revenue. So what we would end up doing is we would do like really in-depth direct mail. Like we built these rental marketing analysis. where it's like a 5 or 6 page brochure, but it actually did, we would mail merge in like a photo of their house. Like I actually hired a photographer to take a picture of every single house in this one community called Sunset Island. And when we merged in the brochure, it actually had a picture of their house in it. And it said custom rental analysis produced for John Smith, 123 Gulf Street. And then the pro forma in the back of it, this 5 or 6 page brochure. And it was really nice, high quality print. Actually had a rental projection of their property. So really did a lot of customization. We also got really lucky. We partnered with a realtor, these 2 realtors that actually had like a 95% market share of that community I was just telling you about, Sunset Island. And we actually ended up bringing them into our real estate company. We actually set up as a real estate brokerage, and we paid them like 100% commission. And then we just we had an arrangement where they were renting a desk, so to speak, and then we would they had to pay like a per file fee, if you will, and then vice versa. We would give them a referral fee on any contract they sent to us. So that was an easy way to kind of grow our inventory in that community, was through that realtor connection. And that, it's funny because we originally tried to build out our own real estate brokerage, and I realized we were, again, this is 2007, 2008. And it's like, all I was hiring was like the bad news bears of of real estate agents. And we weren't closing any deals, and had a, GM, which we're paying, $80,000, $100,000 a year to, and finally I said, all right, screw it. We're just going to partner with these guys and let them run it. And it was like instantly like a $160,000 swing from loss to profit. And it became a great referral source for us. But long-winded way to go to direct mail and realtors were really the big part of the growth there.
I love that you say that. I think a lot of people, like you're saying, how people say the direct mail doesn't work, or they don't believe in direct mail and calling you a boomer. But check your fucking mailbox.
That's right.
There's still advertisements in your mailbox for a reason. Mail does convert, and I tell people this all the time. So, I send like little packages to like high-end clients with brochures and things like that, and with like a little gift or whatever, things like that. And I mean, people would call sometimes just to say no, but say, hey, thank you so much. That was so nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the world of digital, where you're getting, I don't know if, I'm sure your emails are similar to mine. I'm probably getting 200 to 300 emails a day. You know what I mean? And I'm just going through and deleting as quick as I can. But there's something about, you go to your mailbox every day and you look at it, and you might only have a couple seconds, but you do look at it. And exactly to your point, Matt, like I love the rule of reciprocity and sending gifts, especially. So what we always do when we meet with new partners is we sit down with them and we say, hey, let's look at your data. Let's look at your targets, and let's rate them as like your A targets, your B targets, your C targets. And then we also want to go one step further in your super A targets. So your A targets, you're going to hit every single month. Your B targets, you might hit quarterly. Your C targets, you might hit once or twice a year. But your super A's, you want to hit them monthly, but you also want to send like nice high value gifts. But here's the thing. Here's the reality. Nobody wants your logo on like clothes and sending it to them. They don't care about your freaking company. You know what I mean? Like, so how do you personalize it specific for them? So one trick we've done, and I love this, and this works really, really well. Go to Airbnb, go to Vrbo, right click on the picture, copy it, paste it into ChatGPT, and use this prompt. Convert this picture into a watercolor painting. And then you'll get this nice, it'll convert that picture into a watercolor painting. You print it out on like a parchment paper, really nice, like a paper. And then you can frame it in like a 5x7, like acrylic frame that you get for like $5 on Amazon. And then you mail it to them. It's a picture of their house with a little handwritten note that says, hey, I thought you would appreciate something like this. Everybody loves their vacation home, right? Everybody wants to have it on their bookshelves at home. They can tell their friends about it, tell them about their beach house, tell them about their mountain house. And now again, you've leveraged something called the rule of reciprocity. There's a gentleman named Dr. Cialdini who wrote a very famous book called Persuasion. And he talks about that, the rule of reciprocity. People do not want to feel like they are being mooches. If you give somebody something, they feel obligated to give you something back in return. Even if you know somebody is doing it as a rule of reciprocity, they still do it. I'll give you a perfect example. My wife and I went to Hawaii for our 20th anniversary. We went up and down every little shop there, walked in and out at every single one of them. And, we had to buy some gifts for like our family and things like that. And one of them we walked into, they gave us a lei. They put a lei around our neck. And it was such a nice little gift from them. No charge or anything like that. 5 minutes later, I go to find my wife and I'm like, all right, let's go. And she goes, no, we got to buy something. I'm like, why? She goes, they gave us these nice little Lays. I'm like, honey, these things are like 25 cents. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we ended up dropping $85 on crap that we, for our family. But here's the point. We walked into a dozen of those shops. Why did we buy from that shop? Because they gave us a 25-cent lay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to actually use that watercolor thing and see how that goes. That's great. I mean, that's really smart.
Here's a picture of one, like, just to give you an idea for people that are, I know you're doing the podcast here, but people that are watching this.
You just put it in a little frame like that, huh?
Yep. Just nice little acrylic frame.
Wow.
Dude, that's genius.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah. I don't, the stuff I give them, I don't put logos on it at all.
Yeah.
The only thing logoed I give them is a pen, just because I know they're going to use it and see it over and over and over. So
no, I mean, you can do some things with logos, like, you do like obviously a magnet calendar, like, like if like what their sports team is, you can, send out like the calendars for like the football schedule and things like that. And I can have your logo on it. But like, if you're going to send them clothes or anything like that, like nobody cares, like they don't want to be donning your logo, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care about your logo.
Yeah. That's what Rachel was saying that she does with, her hired clients in Park City. She'll, what'd she say, Austin? She sent them some whiskey or something, or some, found out what they really like.
She was saying like, but like for the whale she was going after, she would like have someone on her team look at their Facebook or do some like digging of like what their hobbies are, what they like, and get super personal and send them like something nice like that. But like, I mean, but she's like very, very, dialed on that project.
Well,
so it's like,
and that's where, we were talking offline about Blue Box. So not a shameless plug for us, but like we created a product called Blue Box, where it's a Chrome extension, allows you to go to Airbnb and Vrbo, and you can reveal the contact information for many of the homeowners. So this is where you want to do that strategic sniper-like approach. So you actually want to have a two-prong approach. You want to do a shotgun approach where you're spraying everybody in your market, all the targets you want to go after. And then you want to do more of a high value gift, whether it's handwritten letters, whether it's the gifting that we just talked about, leveraging the rule of reciprocity. And that's where you want to do more of that, like hand to hand, like one to one type combat. But that's where, again, a product like Blue Box by Vintory allows you to get that contact information for those homeowners.
Can it find the homeowners even if it's not their Airbnb account? Like even if they're like managed by Vacasa, what does it do? Just find the location of the house and then skip trace it all?
Yeah, behind the scenes, what's happening there is really complex. So let's just talk about on Vrbo. So Vrbo, about 70% of the addresses are revealed. So what we do is we have the largest database of known short-term rentals in the world. We have over 1 million records, in our database, and that's what we are. We're a data company that helps you find known short-term rentals. So if you go to Vrbo and and the address is there, we will instantly match it up against our database, and then it'll match up against the property address. Then does a reverse append, which goes to the mailing address. When you have the mailing address, the tax record address, then you have the homeowner's name, and then it automatically is doing connecting to get the contact information in there. So again, we have this huge database, over 1 million records. So it's instantly doing that. Now, with Airbnb, it's a lot harder if you know anything about Airbnb, because Airbnb is masking their addresses. So Vrbo on Blue Box works much better just because there's a 70% address rate, so it's going to be a lot easier. On Airbnb, what we have to do is we have to match it to a Vrbo address. We have to match it to one of our permit lists. We have to match it to, we're constantly scraping property management websites. We're scraping the large venture-backed companies that are out there. We have a whole entire team that is going out there and getting permit lists. So if we can kind of do we're even doing some AI matching with like photos. So if the picture looks very, very similar in the Airbnb house property versus this Vrbo, they're both 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath that have the exact same listing description. We have a 95% probability that it's the same property. Then we'll connect those dots. So people come to me sometimes like, well, Brooke, you don't have every address in Airbnb. I'm like, I know it's kind of challenging what has to happen for that to happen, but it's better than anything else out there by a factor of 100, because nobody has built the tool like that, like we built.
You can't even skip trace every address anyway. I mean, public knowledge is public knowledge. I mean, it's funny you say that because like I'll feel that when I'm struggling. Like trying to find somebody's house, and it's like, I got to go and compare it with Zillow so I can actually figure out where this house is, because it's some random side street that has a name but doesn't have a name. And you're like, okay, which house is this? Which one is that? So I can see how it'd be a lot faster for people and easier. What about when it's LLC registrant? Is there something you guys could do with that?
Trust are really challenging. We're working on some tools right now that can kind of help unlock that. But yeah, candidly, it's much more difficult with trust. And we find about 30% of the homes that are out there are in some kind of an LLC or a trust.
Yeah, the LLCs are rough. I mean, you look at the state. I think it takes a human to find it easier, maybe, because you got to
we'll get
look
there.
at the state.
We'll unlock it at some point, but yeah, it's definitely adds a little bit of level of complexity.
I think that's cool. So how fast? Like, if I were to go pick something on Verbo, how fast does it find the answer? Seconds.
Yeah.
Wow. So how else do you guys focus on helping property managers and co-hosts grow their business?
Yeah. So the first thing we do is, like kind of mentioned before, is we're going to meet with a partner. We're going to kind of get to understand them, get to understand their brand. We're going to talk to them about differentiating, and we build out the 7 key messaging building blocks. So this is really like the baseline of all the marketing that you're going to do. So understanding what are your USPs, your unique selling propositions, what are the key features and benefits. Talk about social proof. Social proof is a psychological phenomenon that people trust what other people have to say about you. So getting like testimonials is obviously a great example of social proof. Building out a compelling offer. Again, what I was talking about before, if like you're doing like everybody else, like even if you do direct mail, you've got like 2 to 3 seconds while somebody's looking at your piece, while they're standing over the recycling bin or the trash can, right? To kind of get their attention. So you got to have some kind of a compelling offer. Like, maybe it's 0% interest for the first 6 months. Maybe it's a reduced commission for the first year. Maybe it's even like a signing bonus. Like, these properties are so valuable in your rental program, offer them something. I mean, Vacasa used to give free hot tubs to people. Give them some kind of compelling offer. You got 2 seconds to catch their attention while they're looking at the direct mail and put it on you just want them to drop it on the counter, not in the trash can. You need a really good call to action, give them multiple ways to do it, whether scanning like a QR code, whether it's going to a landing page, whether it's texting, whether it's calling. I look at my brother. My brother doesn't want to talk to anybody. He wants to, just text people. So give them that option to text. But my mom, she wants to speak to people. So like give them the option to call as well. But, make sure you have a call to action. You'd be surprised how many people aren't like giving them a clear call to action. And then you need something what's called risk reversals. So what are those things that reduce friction in the buying process? Whether it's like, no long-term contracts, 100% guaranteed. Evolve has a great risk reversal. You can actually cancel and they'll actually refund you your management fees. Like, how do you say no to that? That's like that risk reversal that just, greases the skids when they're thinking about, signing up. So that's the first thing we do. And then we build out their marketing campaigns. We really understand about them. Direct mail, again, is a big part of that. But we also do cold email outreach. Cold email actually works. It works very quickly. But this is not like MailChimp. This is not Constant Contact. This is called direct response copy. Like, you want to send a very, very simple email. You want to mention like something in the message line, like, their property address, even if it's just like, the 123 Gulf Street or your property in Bethany Beach, Delaware, or whatever it happens to be. And then you just want to ask for a very light lift. It's kind of like dating, right? You don't ask to get married on your first date. You gotta work up to it. Same thing here. You can't just send an email, say switch to my management contract. So what we would suggest is something as simple as, hey, I noticed your property at 123 Gulf Street. We think it'd be an excellent property in our rental program. Is it okay, Matt, if I send you a rental projection? Like very easy, light lift. And then you're just kind of like working. Then they say yes. That's all they have to do. And then you produce the rental projection. You send it over to them. You get more of an opportunity to kind of work with them on that. But again, that's cold email works really well. But again, you don't want to use. You want to use something like Mailshake or Lemlist. These are products that are ensuring your emails are getting delivered to make sure they're not getting blacklisted. And you also don't want to use your primary domain. So if your website, is, Vantage, resortrealty.com, like, you don't want to send emails from that. You want to send it from like GetVantage or, GoVantage or Vantage.net or, whatever it happens to be. So if you do end up burning that domain, which we've never done, and we send over 7 million emails per year, you got to make sure that you're not burning their primary domain. So
That's wild. So you get a lot of response on emails. Would you, if you wouldn't get a response, would there be a nice little like follow up sequence, some kind of nurturing?
Exactly. It's a three email sequence. You want to send it. The second one is just like we call like a thoughts bump. Just as like one little word, just says thoughts, question mark. And then we do one more third bump response to that. So we usually do it on a three email sequence.
Thoughts. Just thoughts.
Simple. Here's what happens is it's all about pattern interrupt. If it looks like it's a marketing piece, they're going to think it's a marketing piece and they're going to immediately delete it. So you want, and again, there's the time and place for sending, marketing emails, but it just we've actually had people that come to us after we like show them the copy. They're like, I'm embarrassed to even send this. They're like, they were expecting us to build these beautiful, like branded, like beautiful constant contact emails. And I'm like, you're more than welcome to do that, but it's not going to work. We know that we get a higher percentage response rate on these simple little things. Again, we send over 7 million emails a year. We send over 1.5 million postcards per year. Like everyone thinks they know it better, but we've got the data to back it up.
Yeah, it seems like it's more authentic that way. Like it's actually really coming from someone versus like everyone else. Like you said, the 300 emails that you're getting, that you're going through and hitting unsubscribe all the time. Those are the ones that are all structured the other way, the way you're saying, right? Like at least that's what I think. Um, but yeah, I guess my question to you is like, in your opinion, like let's say I'm running a campaign and I'm running, 0% commission for the first 3 months, or would you think in your experience it would be um, from the buyer side, would it be like better to do it that way, or say, hey, signing bonus of $3,000 if like that? What do you think is more effective, the offering cash up front or 3 months of commission? What
Yeah,
do you think?
you just got to test it and see what works in your market, and do an A/B test, right? Send out 10,000 postcards, and send half of the list with one offer, and the other half of the list with another offer. Just do a split test and see which gets resonates better with them. I mean, I like to do things that are more beneficial to you. So like I love the hot tub idea. You know what I mean? Like that, because they knew that they would end up, two things happen. The first is they know they would get more rental income from if they had a hot tub in there, and therefore their commission would come, from that. The second thing is you actually can then sign a longer term contract with them. So if they do that, then you can say, all right, well, you can do this, but you have to stay with us for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, if you end up giving them that hot tub. You're kind of locking them into a longer term contract. And then what you can even do is you can say, if you end up canceling, you have to pay back a portion of it. And if you think about it, you almost have like a secured loan because you're holding the rental income. So obviously it's all got to be documented in there. We would do some things where my business partner, he owned a lot of vacation, hundreds of vacation homes himself personally. And he knew like he would put a lot of money into the properties and they would do better than everything else. So what we'd end up saying is that, hey, if you want to even pay for the renovations, we'll actually finance your renovations of your home, because we know it's going to do, the property's going to do significantly more. And then therefore we actually almost had like a lien on the, not on the property per se, but on the future rental income that would come in, and we actually paid it back from that.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do something kind of like that in terms of getting people to sign longer contracts. So like, for instance, like I'll price anchor. So like in my presentation, I'll have like 3 anchors, and the middle one is where I want you to go. I want you to stay for 2 years. But the caveat to that is like, I'm not charging you an onboarding fee if you go here. The rate's lower, everything's better for you, but you have to stay for 2 years. And if you leave during those 2 years, then you're paying for the onboarding fee that you didn't pay for previously.
It's like a little bit of a poison pill if they do.
Yeah, we've seen kind of success. And then like, the top package is some crazy shit that nobody will ever say yes to, but it's like, it's the best ever. It's, a set amount a month. You can cancel anytime, but all this is paid for and covered for you. But it's like, no one's going to say, okay, that makes sense. And then the other one's like, okay, well, you cancel within 30 days, but it's this percentage and it's this fee and it's this, that. So I can see how that could provide value. I'd probably have to make them stay for 5 years for a hot tub, though. That's a pretty penny nowadays. Wait, who's paying for the install?
Good point. That gets expensive, but
yeah, the only thing I see that's like effective in that or in that kind of stuff is that, I mean, where it's like when you if you're onboarding so many at one time, it's like a lot of upfront costs for you, right? I mean, you'll make it back, but a lot of upfront costs for you if you were to give out a hot tub. But that's cool.
So I did a total random thought here, but I did a presentation at VRMA this last year in October. Austin, I don't know if you were in my session. I did too, but one on AI and homeowner acquisition. The other one was 25 alternative strategies to grow your inventory that aren't postcards. And it scored really, really well. It was one of the highest scored sessions at VRMA, so much that VRMA asked us to do it again as a webinar. So I'll be doing that here in January. But happy to go over some of those strategies if you think that'd be helpful for your listeners.
I think it would be.
Okay, cool. So I'll cherry pick. I'll just bounce through. I won't go through all 25, but I'll just cherry pick some of these. So the first one, I love this one. It's send a local magazine subscription. So I actually got my neighbor did this to me. So she's a real estate agent and I live in Baltimore, and she sent me a year's subscription to Baltimore Magazine. And every single month I get this subscription, and it has, like, on the address section, compliments of Tracy Phillips, which I thought is so cool. But when I started doing research on this, like, she paid like $12 for this. So $12 for a year subscription to Baltimore Magazine. And I get this every single month. So think about that. She gave me a year's marketing for $12. And again, it's leveraging that rule of reciprocity. And guess what? It's sitting on my coffee table right now. And I'm telling this story, and my in-laws are getting ready to move here soon, and they need a real estate agent. And who's the first person I recommended was her because of that. So find if your local, area has a kind of a magazine that you want to send to them. So like if you're in, Galveston or something like that, you can send everybody in that area, maybe the local Galveston, magazine. And a lot of these companies will do it for virtually nothing because they're making most of their money on the advertising. So I thought that was cool. Here's one, offer a home watch service. So home watch is like a great, like, loss leader. I have a partner in Kauai and another one in Park City that did this, and they made it really simple. They made it very inexpensive. So you think about, you have these high-end properties, they're not renting it out, and you do a home watch service for them. But what it does is it builds a rapport with them. And inevitably, some of those owners are going to need to have to rent it out or want to rent it out. Just lifestyle's going to change. And who are they going to use? They're going to use you because you've built that relationship with them. And it's just a great way to do it.
What's a home watch service? Like, what do you mean? Like, explain that.
Yeah. So imagine you have a $6 million house in Park City that you go to twice a year. Well, you need to have somebody that's going through that house, making sure that nobody broke in, make sure the pipes didn't burst. So you literally hire a home watch service that goes through either weekly, monthly, biweekly, something like that. And just walks through the house, just make sure it's in good repair. Maybe does some, light. We had one house in Park City. I remember one of our partners, they literally clean it once a month, even though nobody's in there, just to, make sure it's there, shovel, get the snow off of the deck and things like that. So the deck doesn't collapse, just, basic maintenance and things like that.
Gotcha.
Here's another one. So I have a sister company called Comparent.com. Comparent is the largest marketplace of professional vacation rental managers in the world. We have over 6,000 management companies listed on it. You get to highlight your brand. You get to highlight you put in your reviews from Airbnb, Vrbo, even get homeowner reviews. You get to upload videos, highlighting your services. We're getting about 5,000 unique homeowners per month are going to Comparent looking for professional management. So remember, we have the largest database of vacation rental homeowners in the world. So we're constantly sending emails to them saying, hey, if you're looking for new management, if you're sick of managing it yourself, go to comparent.com and you can see all the managers in your area. In some markets, we've got 30, 40 different companies listed on there. And it's free to list. It's free to create a listing. The idea eventually is obviously you upgrade, you get some other bells and whistles and, sorting algorithm and things like that. It gets if you end up doing a sponsorship, but you can get lots of leads. I mean, many of our partners on Comparent are getting 100, 200 homeowner views per month on their comparent profile page. And some of those aren't even paying anything to do it. So I would definitely recommend everybody claim your listing on comparent.com.
Wow. So everybody in my market, you'll just take off that site, right?
Or you can upgrade, you'll be listed at number one. So here's one that worked really well. Create a map of the top properties in the market that make great vacation properties. So there's a tool called, one of the tools called Batch Geo. You can go to Batch Geo and you create a map, and then you just what happens all the time, you get called, I'm sure, from homeowners saying, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. Will you give me a pro forma? They're just kind of kicking tires. But what if you created like a list? You looked at all the top properties that are currently on the market. You create a rental projection, you create a rental pro forma, and then attach it to the map. And anytime someone comes to you, you can just send them a link to that page. It's going to be on your landing page. Or what you can do is you can push that out to realtors. And now, look, I used to be a realtor. I get it. Realtors are lazy. When you get ready to have a listing showing, and you're getting ready to go show people properties that, what's one thing that's going to be great for them to do is they're going to scramble. They want to have rental projections. So they end up reaching out to you to get a rental projection. And then you got to scramble and give it to them last minute. I'd rather just give them a website where it's constantly being updated. So you've got those rental projections in there. And what's even cool is you can put it on like a tent card and put it in the properties. And then when people go into the properties, they can just scan a QR code and they get a list, because that's a great place. That was always one of our number one places to get new homeowners in our rental program was our current guest, because the guest couldn't tell you they didn't travel to the area. They obviously liked the property, they rented it, and then they could actually, you tell them, you show them how they can buy that property that they stayed in or a similar like property, and how it can pay for itself with rental income with your management company.
Man, I'm just over here writing down ideas. You just keep going, don't stop. Yeah, Austin's writing stuff down too.
Like, this is one of those episodes I'm just going to listen again myself, because I get overwhelmed. Like there's so many ways that you can do this. And there's so many different ways. And when you're like 25 different ways, like how do you balance that, right? Because if you just go like a drop in every single bucket of all 25, you're not going to get any results, right? So my theory is you've got to pick 2 or 3 of them and go as all in as you can on those 2 or 3, right? I mean, is my thought process flawed, I guess? Because you can't do all of this.
Exactly, right. Pick 2 or 3 and just go with it and go all in. Try it for a quarter, see how it works. If it doesn't work, go to another one, and just test them out. You'll finally get that vein, and you'll figure it out and find the ones that actually work. And sometimes sometimes you exhaust it and you got to go to another one later on. But yeah, just test them and go all in, just like you said.
Or just hire someone like yourself that can do this stuff for you, and then you don't have to do anything but take the calls. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's what we done. Look, it's hard. That's what we realized. Look, I've been in everyone's shoes. You're wearing 15 different hats, and I don't know if you've ever seen the Eisenhower Matrix, but it's it becomes one of those things that's important but not urgent, so people don't do it. So usually they kind of push it to the side, and they do it. They've got screaming guests, screaming owners, houses literally on fire. You know what I mean? You focus on those things. You don't focus on the things that are important but not urgent. But they are really, really important. And look, the best way to grow your top line revenues and your bottom line profits is growing your inventory. It's a 4 to 6 times the impact of revenue management or marketing and distribution. And you have to do those things. Don't get me wrong, but growing inventory is much, much more impactful than anything else. I mean, think if you were to add a dozen properties this year, what that would do to your top line revenues.
Yeah.
All right, here's another one. Offer free family portraits. So I did this one in Vantage in Ocean City. We partnered with a real estate agent. A photographer. And every Wednesday night at sunset, about an hour before sunset, we had this photographer, and he had an assembly line, and he would just get into 10-minute increments, and he would just do family portraits on the beach. And what we would do is we'd send out these emails, and we'd send out these letters to owners of properties we really wanted to go after. And we knew inevitably that they were going to be there at some point during the summer. And we had a little, appointment scheduler. They could schedule it on the calendars, and they would just, every Wednesday, 7 o'clock to 7 to 8:30, they could go ahead and grab some time on the calendar and block it off. And again, this goes back to that, rule of reciprocity that we talked about before.
I just bought a brand new camera too. No,
there you go. Let's see. We talked about the watercolor painting. We talked about blue box. Let's see. I mean, one thing is like treat your cleaners and maintenance team like gold. Like you think about most of these cleaners and these maintenance people, they've got like relationships with other owners. A lot of them, the rent by owners are using them. So I remember like we would do a vendor appreciation party every year. We would do when they would a lot of times they wanted to just stop in and collect the check as opposed to mailing it to them. I always wanted to hand deliver it to them. I wanted to shake their hands. I wanted to look them in the eyes and thank them for their business and say, hey, if you ever have any referrals for us, we greatly appreciate that. We pay them referral fees because if you think about it, these properties are super, super valuable. Most people have never actually gone through the math of how valuable a contract is, a management contract is to your rental program. And when you actually go through the math of how powerful it is and what the ROI is on it, you'd be more inclined to actually pay people for it, referral fee. So quick little math. If you sign up a new property doing 50,000 in gross booking revenue, top line rental income per year, the average management company nets in profits or EBITDA 10% of the gross booking revenue. So if you sign up a property doing 50,000 in gross booking revenue, you're going to make about $5,000 net per year. But the problem is, or the opportunity here is, the property doesn't stay in your rental program for 1 year. The property is going to stay in your rental program for multiple years. And on average, to get your lifetime, it's a simple formula. You just take your churn, like what percentage of your inventory do you lose a year, and you divide one divided by your churn percentage. So if your churn is 10%, and that's the industry averages, take one divided by 10%, that gives you a 10-year lifetime. So the property makes $5,000 in profits. It stays in your rental program for 10 years. What do you make? Math majors here, $50,000. So think about that. So the hack here is if you fall within industry averages with gross net margins and churn, which are both 10%, your lifetime value is equal to your gross booking revenue. So here's the thing: you get Austin, someone in Fredericksburg reaches out to you. They've got a property that's you project is going to do $150,000 in top line rental income. In the back of your head, to say, if I keep this property for 10 years, I'm going to make $150,000 in profits over the next 10 years. Like that's an annuity. Like that is money. Yeah. There's a reason why private equity is coming in this space and like buying these companies, because it's predictable recurring revenue. So next time you get that, next time you get that call, you get that lead that comes in there and it's like a $75,000, potential projected gross booking revenue. Think about that as a stack of $75,000, because that's what you're going to make over the next 10 years. And when you sell your management company, if you sell your management company, you're going to get a check for every one of those management contracts. The average contract last year was sold for $34,000 per contract. So if you build up a company with 100 properties under management and you're getting $34,000, per contract, if my math is correct, that's $3.4 million.
See, I agree with you. I think a lot of people just think like they want to see what they want the properties that are going to make exactly like the most, right? Which that makes sense, but the supply is limited. And if you're in a market already, there's only so much you can have in that market. And I look at it like, yeah, okay, if I manage a $50,000 property and I made $5,000 a year off of it, but what else am I making more? Am I letting them check in early? Am I making money on damage waivers? Am I making money on any kind of upsells? Because really, you have the potential to make even more money off the property year over year over year. Well, and yeah, I mean, I agree.
The funny thing is, it doesn't matter if you're a management company in Aspen and Vail where they're charging 50% commission, or you're like I was in Ocean City, 13 to 16%. Net, almost across the board, it's about 10% falls to the bottom line. Now you're going to get outliers. You're going to get some companies that are a little bit more. You're going to get some companies that are a little bit less, especially if you're early on. You don't have a lot of properties under management. You might not get as much, but you're going to find, just to your point, Matt, you're going to find other ways to monetize. You're going to find ways through your cleaning fee. You're going to find ways through, early check-ins, late checkouts, pet fees, whatever happens to be. But on average, across the board, looking at, hundreds and hundreds of companies, 10% usually falls to the bottom line.
So, Brooke, would you say, like in your experience, what you've seen, like what is the average cost for acquiring a new client? Like, is there a number out there where it's like an average market spend that you see? So, like if I was saying, hey, I want to acquire this is what I should expect as a market average let's say as a paying as a referral fee or whatever the cost to acquire that client is? What does it look like? That makes
That's
sense.
great question. So CAC is so important, and we'll talk about lifetime value and all those other, and LTV to CAC as well. But what we found is you want what we call, our target is a 12. The quick answer is it depends, right? If you're in a market where your average GBR, gross booking revenue, is 36,000, it's going to be very different than where your average GBR is 180,000. So, but our rule of thumb is you want what's called a 12-month CAC recovery. So if you can recover your CAC in year one, that means, again, if you fall within industry averages 10% churn, that means you're going to keep a property for 10 years. That means from month 13 through year 10 is all profit. Year one, you're just covering your costs. That's all you want to do. You want to get that 12-month CAC recovery. And then from year 2 through year 10 is all profits. So if you sign up a property that's doing 50,000, again, the industry average, if you ask key data across the board in the United States last year was $50,000 in gross booking revenue. So that means 10% falls to the bottom line. That means you can spend up to $5,000 to acquire that property and you are home free because you're making $45,000 over the next 10 years.
So a good rule of thumb is maybe 10% is what you should to acquire the property. Maybe.
If that's what your profits are. Yeah. If your profits are 20%, you can spend up to 20%. You can spend up to $10,000. So, but yeah, it's rule of thumb. Exactly. It should be about 10% or whatever you net profit in that first year.
Yes. Simplify. Yes. Whatever their net profit is for the first year. Yes. Yeah, because most people stay, you said 10 years on average. That's the industry.
So if your churn is 10%, that means your lifetime, you take 1 divided by 10%, it's 10 years. Now, if your churn is, 20%, then you're looking at a 5-year lifetime. So it's called unit economics. The unit economics change considerably. That's why churn is so important. That's the only reason why Vacasa is not a $6 billion company, publicly traded company anymore, is because their churn was, north of 25%. If their churn was normal, like 10%, they would be crushing it right now. They'd have 60,000 properties under management, and they'd probably be a $6 billion company right now.
What do you think contributed to that? You think it was because everyone was just going after the big dog, or you just think that their service just kind of went downhill?
Man, you could literally do an entire book on it. A lot of it, I think, is they lost. I'm a big fan of local, and I think they lost that local touch. They were in they were in Boise, they were in Portland, Oregon, and their ivory towers. They weren't necessarily local. Like they had local presence, but they kind of lost that. That's why I think actually Casago actually works for them because Casago bought all the inventory from Vacasa, and they are selling it off 100% of it, selling it off to local franchisees, and that local hero is going to be the one that has the is in the community, that lives there, that is direct control of the P&L, is like sponsoring the little league teams, you know what I mean, like doing those things, and like having direct response and relationships with the owners, with the guests, and also with the community. And I think it's successful, that model. I mean, look, if you look at historically, I mean, Wyndham really didn't succeed. Resort Quest didn't succeed. Vacasa didn't succeed. But if you look at the companies like a Wayday, Wayday is quietly rolled up, 35 companies. But what did they do? They kept, they've got over $1 billion valuation now, I'm sure. They've got over, they let the local companies be local. They let the local companies control everything. They never change the brands. Like, it's like they don't even like send out a press release when they, sell the company. Just to most people, a lot of times the owners stay involved. They stay aboard as the GM, and so on. So that model, I think, is successful, and that's why you're seeing more and more private equity coming into the space. Like State Terra and Continuum, and a lot of these other companies are doing this, and they're following that model. They're not following the Vacasa model. They're not following the Resort Quest model or the Wyndham model.
Yeah, I think that's the name of the game. The name of the game is to, try to provide the same service at any scale and just be super local and, I was seeing something the other day that like about Amazon, for instance. Like if you go to your local sports store, it's a little more expensive than Amazon, like your hometown small store, but they're the ones, it's a little more expensive, but that money's going back into the community by sponsoring the sports teams for the kids, the boys and girls clubs, and those kinds of things. And I think that like Austin and his team, they do a great job of being in their community. I see him posting community events all the time. I think you guys are doing some kind of turkey thing soon. And it's super impressive, but I think that that's what it's going to take, right? To be
Yeah,
community, part of
you
community.
you got to be in the community. Yep, you got to be local.
You want to tell everybody about your turkey thing, Austin? I think it's pretty impressive. It's pretty important, isn't it?
Yeah, I honestly don't really know too much about it. I
Oh,
just saw the opportunity, and it was somebody in our community, and we just donated to sponsor it. They've been doing it, I guess, 9 years in a row now, and I'm not too sure. I'm just going to show up. I donated. I don't plan to speak or nothing like that. But yeah, it's just a good way to say thank you, and then full transparency that there's a big realtor in town that's hosting it, so
There you
there's
go.
that bias. But we're always doing stuff like that, so like I'm always looking for opportunities to kind of give back and sponsor certain things, especially certain things that maybe like align with your core values. I think that's part of our duty as business owners as well. Yeah, we want to be successful. Yes, we want to make a positive impact on the world, but one way we make the positive impact on the world is pouring back into things that are important to us. So, yeah, I mean, the easiest way to do that is just do it locally. So, yeah, we like to do that when we can for sure.
That's great.
yeah, I think it's
But
fun.
yeah, for sure.
Sorry to
But
put you on the
Brooke,
spot.
no, it's cool. It's cool. I guess I just don't have all the information on what it specifically is, but no, it's totally cool. But I did want to ask, Brooke. I read your book 0 to 500, but it was like a while ago. Like you're giving it out at like short term rental wealth conference like 3 or 4 years ago or something. So
Yep.
I got to brush back up on it. But for anyone listening that wants to learn more about you and maybe your books or your website, like what's the best way to kind of maybe get in touch with the Vintory team?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm first off, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can always follow me on LinkedIn, Brooke Pfautz, and or you can follow the Vintory, Vintory, or just go to Vintory.com and find out more information about. It. But yeah, if anybody wants a copy of my book, just email me Brooke at Vintory.com. Happy to give them a copy and send it out. But yeah, got tons of great response from. It's funny. I didn't think that book would do as well as it did, but it's done really, really well. We've actually given away over 10,000 books between the four books we've written. The majority of them were from 0 to 500 properties. But I can't tell you how many people came up to me at Verma and shook my hand and said, "Hey, Brooke, I've implemented like many of the strategies you talked about there, and it was instrumental in our growth and everything else." So it's awesome. I love to hear that. And although I wrote that book 5 years ago, so I do need to do an update to it. I have an idea for another book here. I'll probably be doing it January. I'll start writing it. So excited to do that.
Yeah, and then I want to personally plug your podcast. When I spoke with you at Verma, I wasn't aware that you had one because there's just a lot of podcasts out there, but yours is really good. So for our listeners, he has people on, and they basically are 100 plus units, I would say, full-time vacation rental managers, maybe clients of his. But he basically runs them through the 10. Is it essentially the same 10? I've only listened to like 4 or 5 episodes, but it's my new jam, dude. It's like the same 10 the
It's just 10
same 10
mistakes.
questions.
What's the top 10 mistakes you've made in building and growing your company? And many of us have all made the same top 10 mistakes, but it's good to hear, directly from them, because I think you learn from your mistakes. And it's also kind of humbling. I mean, I've had some of the largest management companies on there. I mean, I've had Steve Schwab, that was the CEO of the largest management company in the world, share his top 10 mistakes. I've had Clark Twitty, who has 1,200 properties under management. He made mistakes. So there's just something pretty humbling, learning from these top like legends in the industry, sharing their mistakes, and it's pretty cool. And that's where you learn from.
Yeah, and it's almost like there's a lot of overlap in like they're not always the same. Like the podcasts aren't the
Yeah,
same, but there's always a lot of commonalities and overlap that you can see that certain operators made at, like by our phase at 60-ish listings. Like they're like, "Oh, I remember that's when I did this, that, and the other." But like they give their certain point of views and it's different from, the other people that's been on it. But anyways, I've been listening to it ever since we met, and I'm like, man, this is like kind of what I've been looking for. So
Awesome. I appreciate
not
that.
trying
Yeah.
to convert all our listeners over to your place, but if you are listening, I mean, check it out. It's good stuff. Like if Matt, I apologize if our listeners start going down because of that, because I plugged it, but no, I'm just kidding. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm gonna edit this out. I'm just kidding. What's the name of the podcast?
It's just the Vintory podcast, and
Vintory
yeah, you
podcast.
can listen to it. Or you can if you go to our website, Vintory.com, all the episodes are on our website too.
I think a lot of people too don't realize when you do a podcast, like you doing the podcast, you get just as much value as the people listening to the podcast.
Yeah, 100%.
And they think it's like we're on here talking and we just know everything, but it's like, no, we talk to everybody, like you and everybody else, and they just teach us stuff, and then just happen to teach you stuff. It's the same thing, except for we just talk in person. I mean, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I try to I feel bad. Like I'm like, hey, like shameless plug, like go check out this episode we had with so-and-so. It'll answer exactly the question you're talking about. And then I think to myself, I'm like, why do I feel guilty pushing my podcast? We don't make any money doing this. It's just
we lose money. Technically.
Yeah, we lose. This costs us to do it for now, right? Like, but I guess that means, shout out to anybody that maybe wants to sponsor us. But
I mean, if you want to use our host buddy code, I mean, we could take a little money off that. I mean, if you feel free. I mean,
yeah,
but if you could just send us, just Venmo us info co-host bros. No, I'm just kidding. But we'll take Bitcoin donations.
That's great.
So one more time, where do they email you to get this book? Get the book?
Yeah, just email me Brooke@Vintory.com. BROOKE at Vintory.com. VINTORY.
That was for me. I'm gonna email you, but yeah, thank you so much, Brooke. Hey, man, I appreciate it. I know there's so much more we can go to. We'll probably have you back. Maybe we can get you on here more often, more than you've been on the Secrets podcast. Maybe we'll just see if we can make that happen.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Thanks, guys.
All right. Appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right. With that, I'll let Austin just let us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening. Peace.